impossible.
There's no mistaking it. That's Labyrinthos.
I don't understand. This is definitely Milsha from back then.
It's the beginning of this planet's nightmare.
What is going on? I called the Gnosis. I made them appear.
The subjects are capable of communicating with Udu, but that leads to their own death. Cosmos' power comes from Udu. The closer Xion and Cosmos come together, the greater the stress on Xion.
The disappearance phenomenon is expanding. Half of the Federation will vanish within 72 hours.
Set Abel free from his curse. If you do, Kevin will appear before you once again.
Chapter 55, Dmitry Strikes. We see everyone in the Durando after they're briefed on everything Mary, Shelley, and Julie have learned about Abel's Ark. Apparently, Abel's Ark has reappeared in normal space again, and the Merkaba, where Dmitry Yuriev is, will make contact with it in less than 2 hours. Considering that Dmitry has brought Omega and Abel with him inside of Merkaba, Junior, along with Julie and Helmer, deduce that his goal is the original Zohar swallowed by Abel's Ark a year before. Momo asks if his goal with the Zohar is to destroy Ormus, but Junior, knowing that all of his father's ambitions have been rooted in the fear of Udu, is sure that that's not the case. As the disappearance of planets is continuing, Second Milsha has begun launching escape ships and even begun using some battleships as escape ships. Because of this, they're thin on forces and can't help Junior and the rest out. After Helmut tells them that this will be his last communication with them, he tells them to operate under their own judgment and ends the call. Xion then shows up and begins being snarky when Alan tells her that she should be resting.
Are you sure you want me around? Because, you know, I might call the Gnosis again, or maybe run off to join the enemy.
Jeez, rude. Xion is only gonna get meaner from this point, so get ready. Despite Jin, Junior's, and Alan's worries, Xion tells them that they should shift their focus from her to Dmitry and figuring out what he's up to. With that being said, they jump into action. The four ESs, Dina, Asher, Zebulon, and Ruben, along with the Elsa, fly into a combat zone between the Federation and Ormus, avoiding fire from both sides. Then they make their way into the Merkaba to find Yuriev. In the core of the Merkaba, where they assumed Dmitry would be, all they find is a big empty room and cellars, but no Dmitry. Jin asks him why he's back with Dmitry Yuriev if he used to work with Ormus. Celos tells him that he's willing to use any vessel necessary to obtain what he needs, and it seems from his ramblings that this was just a simple scientific venture for knowledge. More specifically, he seemed to have a deep desire to surpass Joachim Mizrahi, something he never achieved. Junior gets tired of his rants and tells them to just cut to the chase and tell them where Dmitry is. All Celos tells him is that, being a URTV, he should be able to sense exactly where Dmitry is. Junior quickly picks up what he's saying. It's Guinan. He's not entirely sure why yet, but he knows that this must mean Negredo's involved somehow. Now Celos tells Rubido the real purpose for Negredo and Citrine, to destroy Rubido, the Red Dragon. But not only that, he also tells him of Negredo's third function, Dmitry's rebirth. After explaining Dmitry's background and his ability to transfer his consciousness to someone else, Rubido now completely understands what's happening. Unfortunately, he also realizes that they've been safekeeping one of the things that Yuriev needs to meet his goals, the emulator. Meaning, his next target is the Durando. Junior tries to fight him, but Sellers, not being a warrior, runs away as his only purpose was to buy Dmitry time. Their whole journey into the Merkaba was a complete waste of time. A waste of time that Dmitry was counting on them taking. Back on the Durando, we see Omega Res Novae getting out in front of them, along with the Federation ships with his Salvatore faction inside of them. Soon after, the Durando is invaded by Salvatore faction soldiers who go on a shooting spree, killing everyone in sight. Mary tries to activate their defenses, but the locks have been overwritten, something that, unless they were hacked, which they weren't, only Rubido, Negredo, Mary, and Shelly can do. Shelly confirms that their invader is indeed Gainan Kukai, Negredo. Right as she says this, Negredo enters the room, approaches Mary, and says,
Well done. You've done a good job in my absence. Now get some well-deserved rest.
Before shooting her. As she collapses to the ground, Julie yells at Dmitry behind him, and he reveals himself to be Dmitry Yuriev. After explaining the whole situation happening with Negredo's body, sorta, Mary and Shelly remind him that the Durando is under jurisdiction of the Miltian government, and attacking it goes against the Miltian charter. However, Dmitry isn't very concerned considering Helmer's dwindling power in the Federation Parliament. He tells them that he needs the Arbiter Code from them, which is the code needed to open the emulator containers. These codes are inside Mary and Shelly, and although they pretend not to know what he's talking about, Dmitry is determined. Then, from behind Mary and Shelly, Cannon lunges at Dmitry with a knife, but is stopped by a grown-up Citrine. Negredo reminds them that not only will they hurt Negredo if they hurt him, but that Citrine has the same abilities as Negredo. The same abilities allowed Negredo to blow off Albedo's arm from God knows how far away. So an interrogation for the codes with Citrine will not be a pleasant experience. Knowing that Dmitry is already in the Durando, Junior and the rest book it towards the Durando despite the fact that Omega is sending right on it, and there are Federation ships with Salvatore faction soldiers all around it. Shut the fuck up. Being unable to get to the hangar the easy way, as Omega's weaponry is too overwhelming, Junior says,
I'll apologize to Guinan later. We're getting in there even if we have to rip out the walls!
And he does just that. He blows a hole open into the Durando and goes in that way. Vacuum of space? Nah, bro, don't worry about that. Once inside, he, Junior, and Momo are distraught at the carnage before them. With bodies laying all around him, Junior tries to keep himself cool-headed, while Ziggy tries to talk to him. The group decide to go through the residential areas, rescuing whatever survivors are left. While on this mission, they find Mary and Julie. Momo tends to Mary's injury, while Mary and Julie fill them in with what's happening. Apparently, Shelly's being held prisoner somewhere else, so after instructing Mary and Julie to head into the Elsa, they go out to find Shelly. They find her in another room with Kanan, and Shelly tells Junior that Dmitry has the Arbiter Code, and that although she overrode the lock, it's only a matter of time before he gets in. So with that, Kanan leads Shelly to the Elsa, and the rest of them head to the Elsa isolation ward where the emulators are. As they're nearing the room, they encounter Citrine blocking their path. Junior is shocked to see her, as he hasn't seen her in 14 years, and assumes she was dead after the Miltian conflict. After telling Rubido that she won't let them interfere with their father, Junior asks,
Are you an idiot? Don't you understand what's going on?
as his plan will end with the universe being destroyed. However, Citrine is loyal to her father and her mission, and their mission is to destroy Uru no matter the consequences. If she can accomplish that, Citrine isn't worried about the collateral damage, even if it's a universe. Rubido expresses how he doesn't want to fight as he doesn't want to lose more comrades, but Citrine seems to still resent him for abandoning them during the Miltian conflict. Citrine then mentions the other duty she failed to complete, killing the Red Dragon, and with that they engage in battle. After the fight, Citrine is visibly worn out. I only say that because the last few story boss fights have been against Testaments or Telos, and it's nice to see someone actually act like they were beaten up after a fight. Citrine asks Rubido why, after abandoning his duty and killing his brother, he continues to exist while he rejects his reason for being born. Rubido tells her that he lives for the promise he made Sakura. This promise is what helped him get to his feet when he was emotionally defeated after killing Albedo. In other words, Rubido has rejected his creator and found his own reason for living, instead of following the one given to him. Citrine, unable to see past her original reason for existing, responds with the last words.
You're still haunted by that woman's shadow. I pity you.
Rubido has no time to mourn, for as soon as this happens, an alarm sounds, alerting them of Dmitry releasing the emulators. Inside the room, we see Dmitry on a console. As he opens the emulator, he talks to Negredo. It seems Negredo is saddened by the news that Citrine is dead, but Dmitry shows how cold he is towards his technical children as he tells Negredo,
Oh, I see. You're sad. You had a connection to that unit. But that's nothing more than an illusion. You are weapons.
Even when talking about the one URTV that remained loyal to him, he shows no emotion. Then the emulators open and he rejoices as his time for revenge against the terror Udo has implanted in him is coming.
You filthy bastard! Stop the emulators now!
After Dmitry mockingly tells Rubido that he's missed him, Rubido demands that he release Guinan. Dmitry, of course, does not comply and tells Rubido that this is his fault for failing at Milsha 15 years back, as he now has to take matters into his own hands. However, it seems he has been misunderstood. While everyone thought he wanted to destroy Udo to rid himself of the fear of him, he knows that Udo can't be destroyed. What he wants, as I explained in part 3 of the series, is to ascend to the upper domain and, in his own words, become a god himself. After destroying the control panels, Dmitry leaves the room and the Durando begins flying directly into Abel's Ark. Having realized this, they all leave the Durando and escape via the Elsa. Chapter 56, A Family Reunion. Dmitry, now inside the core of Abel's Ark, stands before the original Zohar. The emulators, which have been transferred to different parts of Abel's Ark as well, begin activating as Omega, which stands behind Dmitry, opens up to replace Seller's black emulator with the real Zohar. As soon as the original Zohar and Omega Res Novae come in contact, Omega begins glowing and fusing with their Zohar as it changes shape, and even Abel's Ark itself begins to change shape. I'm not entirely sure why this happens, other than to make Xenogears fans happy because now it looks like the Eldridge. Then we see Omega's new form. Momo detects a tremendous amount of energy emanating from the center of Abel's Ark, which, according to Cosmos, it's surplus energy leaking from Omega after absorbing the Zohar. This amount of energy makes Ziggy realize that maybe Dmitry wasn't kidding about becoming a god. On the Dameron, Wilhelm is informed by Kevin that Omega has awakened. Dmitry wishes to use it to absorb Zarathustra, and with it, he can use its original function of ascending to the upper domain. However, remember that it wasn't until later that Wilhelm installed the function of eternal recurrence, and this change is not recorded in the Y data, so Dmitry doesn't know about this. So as always, Wilhelm is not worried about what's going on. He decides he will simply enjoy the show and send Albedo to do some cleanup later. But wait, what? Albedo's dead, right? Right, okay, look, I know, it's obvious as hell, but the game treats it like a secret. Yes, the White Testament is obviously Albedo. Over with Margulis, he requests an audience with Heinlein. Margulis informs Heinlein that they have destroyed 70% of the Federation fleet and that they await his order to attack Abel's Ark. Heinlein tells them that he didn't even give him permission to move the fleet. When Margulis yells at him, asking why they should just let Dmitry and the Federation have the Zohar, Heinlein once again tells him,
"Know your place, Margulis. Just follow my orders."
Then he dismisses Margulis, telling him to pull the fleet back and leave Mictum. As he walks out, Margulis expresses his concerns and doubts about Heinlein's current decision to Pellegrini. It seems he's having a bit of a crisis of faith in Heinlein. Back in the Elsa, the group ponder on how to even approach something like Abel's Ark.
We don't even know the enemy's location. What part do you want me to stick this ship in?
Then they get a call from Doctus, thanks to Kanan contacting her. Doctus' plan is to gate into the UMN and quickly gate out in such a way that they would gate out inside of Abel's Ark, what Junior calls a short jump. As to how they're going to know where to go, well, Rubido can sense Guinan so they can know where Dmitry is. Kanan gives Momo a program that Doctus uses. It's an interference program that will allow them to gate out of hyperspace by force, allowing them to perform the short jump. Later, as everyone gets ready for the mission, Chaos finds Kanan in the Elsa hangar. It seems that Kanan has analyzed the data of the Kanan program given to him by doctors and has figured out the reason for his existence. I say this because suddenly Kanan seems unsure about his own existence, almost like he's disappointed in his reason for existing. It seems that Chaos knew all about the Kanan program too. He even knew Kanan's codename was Lactus. When Kanan expresses his sadness at what his reason for existing is, that being observing his friends for Wilhelm's gain, Chaos tells him that he isn't responsible, as this isn't a function that he desired or created by his own will. However, Kanan feels that despite the fact that the processes of Program Kanan happen in his subconscious, he is still responsible. But to deny Program Kanan is to deny his own existence, and as a Realian, the only one who can give him a reason to exist is his creator, Wilhelm. Kanan now only wishes that his creator was instead Chaos. After this, the group make their way to Abel's Ark via the short gate jump they planned, and it's successful. However, they probably weren't expecting to get out into a field of what looks like giant red cells. Yeah, Abel's Ark is so big that when they're on it, it just looks like they've shrunk and they're surrounded by giant blood cells. Compared to Abel's Ark, the Elsa is pretty much the size of a virus. After dodging the giant Ark cells, they depart the ship and make their way into the core of Abel's Ark. The core is closed off and surrounded by 4 floating orbs. Each of these orbs contain 3 Zohar emulators. The emulators are causing space to bend, which is blocking their path, so before heading in, they head into each of the 4 spheres and disable the emulators. And by disable, I mean they defeat a Gnosis summoned by the group of emulators, which for some reason causes the emulators to just shatter. After destroying the last emulators, not only does the path to the core open, but the vessels of Anima and all their ESs finally fully awaken. Gameplay-wise, this means that they acquire their strongest ES moves, but story-wise, it means that Wilhelm's plans has come one step closer to being complete. Finally, the group make it to the core of Abel's Ark, where they find Dmitry. Dmitry, in order to keep Rubido from attacking, reminds him that Negredo's consciousness is still inside of him. Rubido tries to reach him, but it's to no avail. After telling him of his plan to transcend Uru, or as they call it, God, and explaining his reasons for this, reasons we already know, the group engaged Dmitry in battle. Just Dmitry, he doesn't even use Omega, and he's still a formidable fight because of the power he has obtained through his connection with Udu. They defeat him, but then he immediately gets up. Rubido tells Dmitry to give up as this isn't a power that a human can control, but maybe he didn't realize that he didn't even bother using Omega, because after saying this, Dmitry begins to glow with Udu waves again, along with Omega, which seems to be becoming unstable. As Dmitry begins to float in front of Omega, he tells Rubido that fear is what has driven human evolution throughout history, and his fear of Udu has driven him to the power that will help him evolve past Udu. Then, he merges with Omega as he tells Rubido that he will show him the fear that both him and Albedo received, and Omega morphs one final time into its ultimate form, Omega Metempsychosis. Because of the size of Omega, the group all transfer into their ESs before attacking it. After a much shorter fight, Dmitry by himself was a harder fight than Dmitry inside of Omega's ultimate form. To be fair, we have all our ESs fully awakened at this point, and that makes him pretty OP. Anyways, after the fight, Dmitry kind of half hangs out of Omega. He tells the group that as long as he has the Zohar and able to operate Omega, he will literally never run out of power, as the Zohar emits an infinite amount of energy. So, proving this, Omega gets right back up and Dmitry prepares to fight again. By the way, I haven't mentioned this, but it seems like operating Omega actually hurts Abel in some way. It's weird. Abel is just our perception of Udu as he observes the real number domain. So does this mean that operating Omega hurts Udu? Or does Udu's observation kind of become a being in its own right? Are they all separate entities while also being one entity? Making it kind of like the Holy Trinity? Udu being the Father, Abel the Son, and Abel's Ark the Holy Spirit? I don't know. I just wanted to share that thought with you. Feel free to discuss in the comments. Anyways, let's continue. After even Ziggy admits that this is pointless, as he can just keep coming back forever, we hear a familiar voice.
You're in way over your head.
That power is not yours. You're simply being seduced by that power, just like I once was.
It's the White Testament, Albedo. He even goes to finally reveal himself. Who would have thought? Just like in Xenosaga 2, Rubido seems happy to see him.
Albedo! Just as I thought, I knew it was you! Albedo!
Yo, Rubido.
After telling Rubido that he came to warn him, Albedo easily diffuses the Zohar from Omega along with taking Abel out of it and transports both of them to Mictum, where Zarathustra lies. After this, Albedo calls out to Negredo inside of Dmitry, but again, Dmitry tells him that it's useless, except maybe it's not.
Really? He sure seems to be hearing me.
As Dmitry is frozen with pain and weakness, Negredo's consciousness breaks away from his body long enough to ask Rubido to kill him. Rubido, of course, refuses to do it, but Albedo goads him on, telling him that it's what Negredo wants and that he now has the power to do it, because Dmitry has now infected Negredo's body with Udu waves, meaning that just like when he fought Albedo in Xenosaga 2, Rubido is now Negredo's and Dmitry's anti-existence. Rubido can't bring himself to do it, however, prompting Albedo to volunteer to do it himself, as it would be easy for him with his New Testament powers. But of course, Rubido doesn't want that either. He never wanted to hurt either one of his brothers. I know Negredo is technically not his brother, but his friend. But Rubido has always treated him like a brother, and they grew up together. Negredo then begs Rubido to do it, as if he waits, it may be too late, and then he is forced back into his body, where Dmitry still has control. Albedo explains to Rubido that they can use the spiritual link to neutralize Udu, and to save Negredo, during the spiritual link, Negredo could send his consciousness to Rubido's body, while Albedo sends Dmitry and Negredo's body to another dimension. As this sounds like the best plan they could come up with, since it keeps everybody alive, Rubido agrees to do it, and the three brothers begin the spiritual link. As they hold the link together, Negredo gets a look at Albedo's mind, as this link is a literal link between them, and he sees what Albedo really desires. So, when Albedo tells Negredo to go into Rubido's body, Negredo has a change of plan. Instead, this dude jumps into Albedo's body and begins pushing Albedo's consciousness out of his own body.
I demand that you get out of my body! Stop.
Negredo tells Albedo to stop trying to hide his feelings, and after telling Albedo that he doesn't like following orders, he sends Albedo's consciousness to Rubido's body.
Go back to Rubido. Stop it! Negredo!
Negredo!
You see, Negredo realized what Albedo has always wanted since he was a kid. He just wanted to be with his brother again, Rubido. Negredo was tired of his duty of having to keep watch over Rubido and Albedo, living with his power and purpose of killing Rubido. He has been living his life rejecting that duty, but this means rejecting what he is. So, in order to end this internal conflict, while also giving his brother Albedo a final gift, and saving Rubido, he decides to make this move, making Albedo and Rubido one again, as they were at birth, while sacrificing himself to save them from Dmitry and himself. As he explains this to Rubido, we see inside the combined minds of the URTVs where we can see Rubido's true form, his grown-up form if he hadn't stopped his cell growth. In the real world, Rubido tries to stop the link, but Negredo stops him. When he tells Rubido that he shouldn't have existed in the world to begin with, Rubido tells him,
Negredo! That's not true! We were friends, remember?
Then he tells Rubido that not only is his duty to watch him over, but he wants it to be over.
I'm not saying goodbye. Let's play together again sometime. Until then, take care. Rubido, Albedo.
Rubido kneels before the disabled Omega, having lost another brother, but regaining his other one. Albedo speaks from inside Rubido, saying,
He put on a one-man show, and ran off by himself. You pissed me off to the very end, Negredo.
Then he playfully tells Rubito not to worry, as once Negredo gets to where he's going, he will probably spy on them along with Citrine. Rubito, looking sad but at the same time content, tells Albedo that they should go see him one day and maybe they can all hang out again.
That sounds like fun, doesn't it?
That doesn't sound so bad.
Then Albedo tells Rubito that he's going to rest as he's tired, and before resting, he informs Rubito that Abel and the Zohar are on Mictum. Over in the Elsa, Mary and Shelley both sense Negredo's death, as it seems that before joining the Unus Mundus, which is what I'm telling myself happened to Gainam's consciousness so that it won't be sadder than it needs to be, Negredo's consciousness gave them a visit and thanked them for everything they've done, and asked them to take care of Rubito.